for bed. I'm impressed that y'all made it out on this rainy night. All day I was like, this is not a work day. This is a snuggle up with a good old movie day and a blankie and a cup of hot tea and my snuggly. So anyway, I want to welcome you all to the Bread Beckers. And this is Carper. This is the beginning of our presentation. I want to also remind you, if you do not know, that we are web streaming our classes now live. So if you miss something I say, if you get a little droopy and drowsy, just watch it tomorrow. Because not only do we web stream it live tonight, so cyberspace can watch it while it's going on. It is also archived as soon as the class is over, so you can watch it again. So we want to welcome everyone. For that reason, we would ask if you could please silence your cell phones and just try to remember to do that so it doesn't go out all over the internet. So anyway, I am just really, really glad to see you all here tonight. Like I said, when the weather, I thought we were going to have ice and snow, and somebody asked, what are you going to do if we have ice and snow? I'm like, I don't know, because I have to be done by February 15th, because I'm gone after that. So, but I'm glad the weather held out. So anybody here for the first time? Wow, so nice to have you here. How did you hear about us? A friend? Yes? Yes? A friend brought you. A friend drug you. Aw. Well, I promise I'll feed you. So, very well. How did you ladies hear about us? A friend. Yeah? Yeah. Okay, all right. Well, I'm real excited about doing this class again. I did it last year in January and February, and I thought I was going to turn right around in May and repeat it, and everybody was gung-ho and said they told all their neighbors and wanted to come, and it just didn't. I didn't have a 4-week space in my calendar at all. We adopted a son instead, so that was what we had to do. So that was okay. So here we are a year later. And I'm just really, really excited to do this class. I'm not sure what I was thinking with my schedule this last week, because I taught a class on Thursday, a class on Saturday, and now a class today. And I leave Thursday morning at 5 o'clock to go do 3 speaking engagements in Florida and 2 TV shows, and I'll be back next Tuesday. But that's why next week's class has to be on Thursday, because I won't be driving home until Tuesday. So, yes, next week's class, please remember, is Thursday instead of Tuesday, okay? So make a note of that, and then the next 2 weeks after that will be on Tuesday again. But that's why next week's class is Thursday. So anyway, but if you like the class tonight, tell your friend. Tell them they can. See, that's the great thing now about web streaming, about archiving. If someone wants to join us next week, they can. They can go and watch tonight's class and then pick it up next week. So be sure to tell your friends, and it's not too late to join us if they'd like to. Tonight's a hard class to do. It's a lot of information, so I need to get going. And so let's just open with prayer, because I am like, my mind is going like 90 miles a minute in all directions. I'm packing for Florida. So anyway, thank you, Lord, for this wonderful night. And I just pray a blessing on this evening, God, that you would just give me clear, sound thinking. I know all the information that I want to share. I just pray that you would help me stay focused and not get scattered and not get sidetracked, and that you will help me keep the information concise and to the point and just very directed. I just pray, Lord, I thank you so much that you promise to give us wisdom to those who lack it, and that all we have to do is ask you. So I just thank you for the opportunity and the privilege, oh Lord God, I do not take it lightly, in being an instrument, in being a vessel that you have raised up to speak into the lives of people, to teach and hopefully encourage others to come back to a very simple way of eating, and that's your way and your plan. We thank you for the abundance of food that you've given us to nourish our bodies, and we just want to remain grateful for that. In Jesus' precious name, amen and amen. All right. Basically, in the realm of healthy eating, I see a couple of things happening. On one extreme, Americans particularly, this is not so much in other countries or not some that I've been to, Americans particularly, we have either resorted to a drive-through window, open a box, heat it in the microwave or heat it in the oven, or maybe add an egg and stir it up, but not so much now. I mean, cake mixes kind of came around when I was growing up, but now you can just go and you buy it all already made. So we've kind of either gone to that extreme, Or some of us may be going, no, 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 hold on a minute. I'm going to make all the food for my family and healthy and all this. And so we go way over here and we go out and we buy books on healthy eating. Maybe we buy 2 or 3 books on healthy eating because we didn't like what we read in the first one, and the second one was too restrictive. It told you couldn't eat any of the things that your family loves. And maybe it told you could only eat certain foods together, and maybe it told you had to eat all this fish and stuff, and you're like, my family doesn't like fish, and fish is great for you, don't misunderstand me. But I don't know about you, but I'm now certified as a nutrition counselor. I've been taking courses for the last 5 years, and I got my certification in October. I have studied many, many, many nutrition classes. I've been self-studying for about 25 years now. I've read many books on healthy eating. And what I have found is the experts don't agree. They're very conflicting. They're very contradictory. I've been to health expos, and people come up to my table and go, they're telling me not to eat bread, and they're telling me not to eat this, and I'm like, okay. And I don't know about you, but I think you've come back to that place where you're going, I can't do this. I can't eat healthy. And you find yourself more confused than enlightened. Anybody find yourself in that spot? And you're like, I don't know, and I think we begin asking these questions. Does it really have to be that complicated? Do I really have to eat food that my family doesn't like? Does it all have to be this, 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 this? And the answer to some of those questions are no, it does not have to be that complicated. And I think then another question is, you might say, is there anything wrong with just meatloaf and mashed potatoes? And no, I had it last night for dinner, as a matter of fact. But the key to it all is to come back and just be very simple. And the underlying premise of everything I'm going to teach you is eat real food. So that is the underlying premise, or the overshadowing, whatever you want to call it, is we have to come back and begin to eat real food. This is not rocket science. And I'm sorry if you may go away and go, well, she didn't tell me anything I didn't already know. I'm here to encourage you and to show you how simple it can be. But I mean, if you're here wanting me to tell you exactly what you need to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, that's going to be difficult. I'm going to show you lots of possibilities and lots of things you can do. But honestly, it's just eat real food. Can we eat an apple instead of an apple-flavored fruit bar? Do you see the difference? And then you don't have to read the label and go, does this have how many grams of fat and how many carbohydrates and how many calories? Don't worry about it. And that's the other thing. Counting calories, it's not going to happen. Counting fat grams, it's not going to happen. Counting carbohydrate grams, it's not going to happen here. I don't even know how to do it. It's not necessary when you're eating real food. Real food is going to fill you up. Real food is going to satisfy you. I left 2 apples at home. I had a classic example, and I can't believe I left them sitting. I had them sitting on my table and right next to my book bag to bring, and I forgot. One apple was this big, and one apple was this big. If you go to calorie charts, what does it say? An apple has 60 calories. Well, which one? So do you see how silly counting calories can be too? And I'm kind of getting way ahead of myself, but so let's go back, and I want to talk to you a little bit about this whole premise of eating real food. We want to choose real eggs. We want to choose real butter. Yes, I did say that. And see, how many of y'all think eggs are bad? No, eggs are great food. They're a food that God has given us to just nourish our bodies so perfectly. And also, the other thing that I find is if you eat real food, you can choose. You can choose according to your family's likes and dislikes. You're not following some rigid program that's having you eat things that your family's not going to go for. I can eat a lot of things. I can eat green stuff in a glass. I can drink it down, swallow it, but my kids go, that is not happening. We are not eating or drinking anything that looks like that. And I've done all kinds of things over the years, and I can pretty much do it. But you've got to, my husband has a basic philosophy in life. If it doesn't taste good, it's not good for you. It's his basic philosophy in life. Why is that? Because if it doesn't taste good, chances are you are not going to eat it. And you might gag it down a little bit if you can really see some great health benefits. But if you don't really see some great health benefits, like really soon, within a day or two, or maybe a week, you're going to quit. You're going to stop. And so I'm here tonight to show you that healthy food tastes good. It's easy. You can find your family's likes and dislikes with a few little adjustments here and there. If you want to be a vegetarian, be a vegetarian. If you want to be a meat eater, be a meat eater. Just eat it real. Okay? Just eat it real. Practical tip, I'm sure you have all heard of this, is shop the perimeter of the grocery store. That is where the real food is. And that's the other encouraging thing I want to tell you tonight, is you can shop the regular grocery store. I mean, yes, I'm glad that y'all come here to the Bread Beckers. So for bread things, yeah, you're going to have to come here. But you can shop for a lot of your food in the regular grocery store. Stay on that perimeter. That's where the real food is. Once you leave the perimeter, every other food aisle is something that man has altered and denatured to the point where it's hardly possible to even call it food in my estimation. So that's where we need to start. And I personally believe that the number one place we need to start with the real food is, guess what? Eat real bread. Okay? Of all the foods that God has given us, this is the most altered. It is the only real food that you cannot find in the grocery store. It's not going to happen. I know there's a lot of stuff labeled out there, whole grain. It is not whole grain, and I'm going to tell you that in just a minute. But this is the one exception of the regular grocery store that is going to be very difficult for you to find real bread. Outside of milling your own, and I am not just trying to sell you a grain mill. In fact, I tell people, you may think by what I'm telling you, I'm trying to sell you a grain mill. No, I sell grain mills because of what I'm telling you. That's how I got started. I learned the health benefits of grinding your own wheat and making your own bread. I was a food science major, and like I said, had self-studied health and nutrition and physiology and biochemistry for many, many years and in college. And when I read this information, the journal was called How to Greatly Reduce the Risk of Common Diseases. The history of white flour was presented in that journal, a short discussion on the common diseases that plague this nation: heart disease, diabetes, cancer, diverticulitis, varicose veins, hemorrhoids, constipation, all these diseases, and it showed how they were directly related to our consumption of white flour. Made absolute perfect sense to me. So the number one thing you need to do, can't get around it. You got to get a grain mill, or you got to start eating and incorporating real whole grains into your diet. 100 years ago, grains, whole grains, was a staple of our ancestors' diets. Don't let anybody tell you it wasn't. I actually had an incredible revelation just a few weeks ago. I bought a book, and I was reading about it, and it was talking about how healthy fruits and vegetables are, and they are wonderfully healthy, and it said, unlike whole grains. And I'm like, what? You know, because if studying nutrition and biochemistry throughout the years, studying vitamins and different vitamins, the individual vitamins, it's always amazed me that just about every one, when you read the food source, the predominant food source, it's always whole grain, wheat germ, wheat bran, brown rice. You know, it's all these grains for just about every nutrient there is. In fact, of the 44 essential nutrients that your body has to absolutely have to maintain health and to sustain life, there is only 4 of those 44 missing in wheat. Only 4. Vitamin A, so eat a carrot. Vitamin C, eat an orange. Vitamin D, have a picnic, eat it outside. And one of the fatty acids, one resource that I said it was a fatty acid, another one said it was one of the minerals, and I can't remember which mineral it was. But I think that's absolutely amazing that this, to me, shows us why Jesus compared himself to bread. Whole grains, real bread, is truly life-sustaining. You could live off of bread physically. When Jesus answered the Pharisees and said, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds forth out of the mouth of God, he was, when I read that, he was reiterating the fact, oh, you think you can live because you have bread. But yes, you may be able to support and nourish your physical body, but you want to nourish your spiritual body, you got to know God, and you've got to live by his word. So I think he was actually confirming the fact that you can live off of, physically, you could live off of bread alone because it's so nourishing and so satisfying to your body. But anyway, back to my story, I had gotten this book, and when that author said that, man, well, what do you think I did? Flipped right over to the grain chapter. I'm like, what's wrong with grain? Oh my goodness, now I know where this bad information is coming from with whole grains. It was the whole chapter started out with this whole thing about back when we were hunter-gatherers, when we hadn't evolved, and our systems have, for millions of years we were hunter-gatherers, and our digestive systems haven't evolved into being able to digest grains. And I went, hunter-gatherers. I've been reading that a lot, and you kind of think, oh yeah, everybody used to hunt and gather. Yes, maybe they did, but I'm telling you, if you go back to Cain and Abel, one of them was a farmer, and the other one was a sheep herder, So those were the first two boys around, and they were growing grain and growing bread. So that whole philosophy, it's all coming from evolutionary ideas. So if you believe in evolution and you believe that we evolved and you believe that whole, millions of years we were hunter-gatherers and it's only recently that we started farming, then that's where it's coming from. And it was just a real eye-opening experience. So 100 years ago, however long you think the earth ago is, people were eating bread. Remember the story of Joseph? What did they store? They stored grain for the years that were ahead. So I want to show you something. 100 years ago, people in our country did not suffer. We'll come back to this. I'll write it again. They did not suffer from the diseases that are so plaguing our nation today. In fact, in the 1900, there was a survey done, and it was found that America was the healthiest nation out of 93 nations surveyed. So we were number one. We were the healthiest nation out of the 93 countries surveyed. In 1920, I guess they did another survey, and we had dropped to second out of 93 nations. Lost my statistics here. In 1978, we were 79th. See a trend going on? In 1980, whoa, now look at this. In just 2 years, we were 95th out of 100. The year 2000, the U.S. Surgeon General declared obesity a national epidemic. And America now leads the world in chronic disease. Cancer, heart disease, diabetes. It's epidemic. Diabetes is epidemic among children. There's 4- and 5-year-olds being diagnosed with what used to be called adult onset diabetes. It is really astounding. In many things, we lead the country, we lead the world. I am very thankful for our trauma care, our surgical care. The things that doctors can do to save your life is truly amazing. I'm very thankful. My daughter was in a car wreck many years ago in 1998. I'm very thankful for the orthopedic surgeon that put my daughter's leg back together and saved her life and stitched my son's face all up, that when the dashboard slammed into it. So I'm very thankful for those things, but we have to look at this. What in the world is going on here? What happened in 1900? Let me explain to you what happened, and I'll show you something that's truly remarkable, and you really might not have ever made this connection. Prior to the 1900s, the bread baked in this country was pretty much done so at home. Flour was milled at the local millers, and the flour was taken home and used quite quickly. They knew something then that we do not know now. They knew that the kernel of grain was created by God with an outer surface several layers thick. Well, they may not have known all that, but anyway, I'm going to tell you. Several layers thick, and that outer layer is known as the bran. This bran's function is to protect the life of that seed and the nutrients that are within. The life, the internal part here is called the germ. This is where the sprout comes from. This is where your vitamin E is. This is where your oils are. Many, many nutrients are here in the germ, and the life of that plant, everything that plant is ever going to be or do is right there in that germ. The bran is several layers thick, loaded with minerals. That's your insoluble fiber. That's your cleansing action. Very, very nutritious. Everything else here in this kernel of grain is known as the endosperm, better known to you and I as white flour. Nothing wrong with white flour when it's eaten whole and intact with the other components. But white flour is basically protein and starch. Very, very, very little, minute, minuscule amounts of vitamins and minerals and phytonutrients in that. It is protein and starch. It's little packets of protein and starch, and that is what feeds the germinating seed. That's what that little sprout eats and feeds off of until that plant develops a root system and leaves so it can get its nourishment from the sun and from the ground. So this seed, with the bran as the protecting outer shell, outer coating or surface, left whole and intact, will store forever. It will be just as nutritious today as it will be next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now, 4,000 years from now. Left whole and intact. Once you grind that into flour or you break that kernel of grain open, a process known as oxidation begins. It's a fact of life. You've all seen bananas turn dark, apples turn dark. That's oxidation. You've all probably smelled rancid oils. That's oxidation. It is a fact of life. Once you grind this into flour and you expose these oils and expose these nutrients to the air, oxidation begins to take place, and from everything I've read, in the first day you can lose as much as 45% of the nutrients that were there, and in just 3 days you can lose as much as 90% of the nutrients that were there. Vitamin E, grains, whole grains, particularly whole wheat, is the richest food source of vitamin E that God has given us. So important to the structure and the integrity of every cell in your body. Our richest food source are foods that have oil in them, your whole grains, your whole beans. It is known as, you've all heard this word, an antioxidant. What an antioxidant does is it protects other nutrients from being oxidized in the presence of oxygen. That's what that term means. So it's like the front line of defense. You know who gets killed first in a military battle? The front line. So what do you think is going to be the first to oxidize? So if you're not milling your wheat and if you're not using your flour when it's shortly after it's milled, you're going to lose most of that wonderful vitamin E and many, many of those nutrients. Now, prior to the 1900s, I doubt they were probably clueless as that they were losing nutrients, but that oil goes rancid. They knew something that you and I don't even think about today. They knew that flour would spoil. So they went to the local miller, they would get their flour milled, they'd come home and use it up before it would spoil. Communities were built around the millers. That's where that name came from. Have you ever thought about Poole's Mill, Howell Mill? What's this, out Sixes Road, there's an old mill there. You ever wondered why we have so many of these road names with mills? That's because that was the miller. That's where he was, and communities were built around them. But something happened in the late 1800s. They discovered that if they sifted this nutrient-rich bran away, this oil-laden germ away from the flour and left only the white flour, the protein and starch, this flour would last forever. It wouldn't spoil. Led to the invention of these huge steel rolling mills that would sift the white flour would go one direction, it would separate out the bran and germ, and the oil would go another direction, would sift out the white flour, producing massive volumes of this wonderful, long-lasting white flour. Eureka, wonderful discovery. We now had flour that would last forever. Local millers went out of business. The steel rolling mills became the predominant in the marketplace. And white flour and white bread became food for everyone. Food for the masses. Food for the common people. Food for the rich and poor alike. And all of this happened and became commonplace around, guess what, 1910 to 1920. Significant turning point in the health of our nation. And I hope that you see something. You'll never read this in a history book, but this is absolutely amazing when you see the connection here. White flour has always been around. Don't think for a second it hasn't always been around. It was in the days of Jesus, it was in the days of the Romans, the days of the Egyptian, but it was reserved for the wealthy, for the royalty, for the kings, because they could afford to have servants that would sift the flour. Do you remember your grandmother's old recipes that said sift the flour? Do you know why she was sifting it? She was running it through a sifter to sift away the bran and germ so the cake would be fluffier and lighter. That's why Grandma's recipe says that. Do you see a recipe that says that today? No. But the wealthy people of the day had servants that could manually sift the bran and germ away from the flour, making fluffier, lighter bread. The days of the Egyptian, the days of the Romans, your wealth and your status was determined by how white your bread was. You were poor if you were eating the barley loaves and the old whole grain stuff. Isn't that interesting? Have you ever thought about the proverb that says, be careful when you sit down at the king's table. Do not crave his dainties and his delicacies. They are deceitful food. Have you ever thought about that verse? What are his dainties and his delicacies? I say they're white flour fluffy things. That's what they are. He had servants that could sift that away and produce these fluffy things for him. That's scripture. You think I'm passionate about milling your own wheat and making your own bread? That scripture goes on to say, put a knife to your throat lest you be given to gluttony. Have you ever thought about that scripture? What happened here? 1910, 1920, the steel rolling mills replaced the local millers, and white flour became, for the first time in the history of mankind, became food for the masses. Rich and poor alike, no longer just the rich people. Now everyone had this wonderful white bread and white flour. And guess what happened? As soon as this became commonplace, 3 diseases became epidemic in our nation. Beriberi, which is a vitamin B1 deficiency, pellagra, which is another B3 deficiency, and anemia. Plagued the health officials. They were like, what in the world is going on? They traced the problem to the new white flour that was on the market. Could you imagine health officials doing that today? Going, it's that processed food you're serving up. Well, I couldn't imagine that happening today, but I could imagine the same thing that happened then would happen today too. They went to the millers and urged the millers to put the bran and germ back in the flour. The millers said, no way. We have found a very lucrative market for these, and don't you love this, byproducts of the milling process. That was what the bran and germ was called, the byproducts of the milling process. They were being sold to make cattle feed, and they were not willing to lose that market, so they said, we'll fix the flour. So for the 25 to 30 or 35 to 40, I've read so many nutrients, probably if you, by the time you put all the phytonutrients in there, it's probably more like 35 to 40. They put, for the 25 to 30 nutrients that are lost when you take out the bran and germ, guess how many they chose to put back in? Not by putting the bran and germ back in. They chose to do what you and I just thought they were doing you a big favor. They chose to enrich the flour. Before I read this history of white flour, I was a food science major. That is what needs to be done to your food so it will sit on the shelf forever and ever. I always thought this was a great thing, and putting those vitamins back in, wow, they are really making this better than it would have been. How silly, how ignorant of us, and I don't mean that, I'm not saying y'all are ignorant, I was ignorant, to think that we can improve on God. Does this look like a great trade-off to you? For 25 to 30 nutrients that are lost by taking out the Brandon germ, they put 4 synthetically produced vitamins back in. Sometimes that your body can't even process. Actually, it's 3 B vitamins, 3 Bs, and iron to take care of the anemia. And supposedly that took care of beriberi and pellagra. But let me ask you a question. Beriberi is a nervous disorder resulting from a B1 deficiency. How many nervous disorders do we have going on in our country today? Pellagra is a vitamin B3 deficiency resulting in digestion issues, gastrointestinal issues, skin eruptions, and finally results in mental insanity. How much of that we got going on in this country today? Skin eruptions, mental insanity, digestion issues, anemia. I would wonder how many people are walking around anemic. And now, let me just say this, they've actually added a 5th nutrient to this synthetic pile of stuff that they're adding to our enriched flour, folic acid. Why did they begin to add folic acid? Because after 70, 80 years of eating this way, oh my goodness, birth defects started going up and up and up. Why did they choose flour to put the folic acid in? Why did they choose that? That's where it came from. That's where we lost it. That's where we lost our richest food source of folic acid. Is folic acid? Yes, it's in green leafy vegetables, and that's wonderful to eat. But green leafy vegetables are not always available, particularly back then when people didn't ship food from all over the world and all over the country. They don't have the broad spectrum of choices that we have. Grains were their source of food. And in the harvest, yeah, they'd add those fruits and vegetables and those nice things. And in the winter, it was root vegetables and things that would store and grains and what they could kill out there for meat. Do you see what I'm saying? We lost a rich food source of folic acid. That's why they put it back in the flour, because that's where we lost it from. If you don't learn anything else today, I want you to think about this very carefully. Do not think for a minute that a food manufacturer and producer does you any favors. They really don't care. Because why did they make this decision to enrich? Was it what was best for the people? No. What was the decision based on? I don't want to lose the money that I'm making over here, so we can't put that stuff back in there. Even though there's disease rampant and epidemic in our country, we'll do something else instead. We'll fix it another way. And you must understand that. And they don't just look for food that they can enrich. They're going to enrich it if a problem has come up. Does that make sense to you? And they don't just go around like Pixie dust, oh, let's put a little calcium in that orange juice. Did you know that one orange has as much calcium as a glass of milk? So why are they now fortifying our orange juice with calcium? Well, because it was lost. And now what do we have? What do we have going on in our country today? Osteoporosis. Everybody's worried about bone loss and all these things. Vitamin A and D fortified milk. Why are they putting that in there? Because they destroyed it with the pasteurization and all the process that they do to our milk. You see what I'm saying? So what's our hope? What's our answer? Let's go back and try to find real food. And I want to tell you something that I believe in all my studies, the things that are being done to food. I mean, they radiate fruits and vegetables so that they can sit on the shelf forever. They're GMO and all this stuff. I honestly believe there is going to come a day when grains will be our only reliable food source that we have. And I am so thankful to God that we have them, because I'm going to tell you something, they will nourish you. And praise God, if you can get a hold of organic fruits and vegetables, we have an organic produce co-op that delivers here every Thursday. If you don't know about it, it's called Nature's Garden Delivered. You can pick up a flyer out there. It's fabulous. They send you an email every Saturday. You get the you know, they already put together a little box. You can pick what size box you want. You can make some exchanges if you don't like what they chose for you. It's delivered here on Thursdays. It's wonderful. You can decide if you want it every other or every Thursday. You can even put it on a vacation hold. It's wonderful. Absolutely fabulous produce. I had butter beans last night. A little thing of butter beans came in my box this week, and it was just wonderful. So I encourage you. So there's ways. Nature's Garden delivered. Here's. I just put them over on that table there. But it's just great. So there's ways you can do it. We have a milk co-op that comes on Thursdays too, where you can buy raw milk. So there's ways that you can get really good food. But the grains are key. That's okay.
Is raw milk or raw cheeses, is it illegal in Georgia or is it okay?
Is raw milk and raw cheeses illegal in Georgia? Raw cheese you can sell anywhere. There's no problems with that at all. At this time, it is illegal to sell raw milk for human consumption. Okay? So we have...
You can buy it and pretend you're going to give it to your cats or something?
You can buy it for pets.
Okay.
Yes. And my pets love it too.
Okay.
So, anyway, and it's fabulous. And I've been giving it to my pets for more than 20 years. We love it. Absolutely love it. So we have those options available for you. We can't. Now, raw milk cheese we sell here. I'll be getting an order in probably, next week I may try to give you a pre-order form and let's get another order. We're getting very, very low in our raw milk cheese supply out there. But, you know, I had to spend this extra time. I know some of you may have already heard the whole history of white flour. If you haven't, or you want to share it, I go into much, much more detail. That's all I'm going to do tonight. I'm not going to go into each one of the diseases because that's a 3-hour lecture. And I do want to cook some food for you tonight. But get the CD, the free CD. It's 90 minutes where I talk about cancer, heart disease, diabetes, blood sugar, well, that is blood sugar issues, diverticulitis. It's absolutely phenomenal. Even things as sinus congestion that you may not make the connection to bread and constipation. It is very, very real. I started grinding my own wheat and making my own bread in 1991, and I was addicted to antihistamines. I had to have them every night to sleep. I did okay during the day, but as soon as I laid my head down, y'all ever had that? It just all stopped up. And I had to take antihistamines. I began grinding my wheat and making my own bread and going to the bathroom at least one time every day. You know that's normal. One bowel movement every day is the minimum, and a normal bowel movement. We had a discussion at breakfast the other morning, what was normal and what was not. Yeah. Anyway, so one normal bowel movement every day is the minimum, and so I began to have that happen. And guess what? All my sinus congestion went away. And I explained to you, you're sitting there going, okay, what does that have to do with anything? It's very related. It's called, you got a whole bunch of junk sitting in your body, and your body makes this mucus so you can blow that junk out your nose because it's gotten reabsorbed into your body. So your body wants to get rid of these toxins. And that's your body's response to toxins, is lots of mucus, lots of stuff, so you can get rid of it, so you can pass it out. If you don't get rid of it one way, it's going to get rid of it another way. And when I started getting rid of the junk in my body every day on a regular basis like I was supposed to, all this cleared up. I began to not get sick anymore. Just lots of things began to happen. And I can stand here today and tell you, 1991 was the last time I had an antihistamine or a decongestant of any kind. 1991, 20 years ago. And I can tell you in the last 20 years, none of my children have had to take an antihistamine or a decongestant of any kind. And I now have 9 children. I had 7 children that I birthed. But anyway, we'll go on. But can you see what happened here? This was the beginning of America's decline in their health. And can you see why we are now the sickest, chronically sickest nation in the world? Why gluttony is such a problem in this country? Because what did that scripture say? Put a knife to your throat lest you be given to gluttony. Whole grains, that bran and that germ portion, fiber, the fiber portion, not only cleanses your body, but it fills you up. It satisfies your body's demand for carbohydrates for its energy production. you will find yourself more energetic. It also satisfies that need for those carbohydrates, so guess what? You won't crave sugary filled foods. I'm not kidding. It is absolutely amazing. So for me, I think that is the #1 place to start. Jesus compared himself to bread for a reason. Well, you just saw that. It's very nutritious. Whole grains, whole beans, very nutritious. If you are dying spiritually, where do you need to start? You can sit in church, you can sell everything you have and give it to the poor, you can go be a missionary, you can go do all these great works. But if you do not know Jesus Christ as your Savior, you are dying spiritually. So, where do you need to start? Start with Jesus, and it makes all those other things make more sense. And it usually makes you want to do all those other things, right? You start wanting to go to church. You start wanting to give what you have to the poor. You start wanting to go be a missionary. You want to read your Bible. You want to do all these things. That is exactly what I found. I had tried all kinds of things over the years. And when I started with the bread, I was energized. I immediately saw health benefits. Immediately. I ate the bread today, and the next morning I pooped. And that was amazing. Sorry, I'm just going to be really real. And the next morning, and the next morning, and the next morning, it was like, whoa, what has happened? Then the sinus congestion, then the sugar cravings went away. Then I started feeling more energetic. And then the next thing I knew, 2 or 3 years had gone by, and none of my children had needed to go to the doctor. Wow. That was amazing. It's very noticeable, immediate health benefits. You will know that you've done something different. And then guess what? You know what? You'll go, maybe I do want to look at the other steps in this healthy eating program. But I'm here to encourage you today, if you never made another change, you will see significant health benefits. How important is grinding your own wheat and making your own bread? And you know what? You may be sitting here. How many of y'all do grind your own wheat already? Okay, most of you. So I'm kind of preaching to the choir. But I want you to say, it's an easy step. It really is. I'm going to make some stuff here tonight. In fact, I got 4 dishes that I'm going to try to crank out of here before we get it done. And so we're going to see if I get it done. Wow. But anyway, it may seem like a big step, but it's really not. It's really easy. And you know what the exciting thing to me is? This is healthy food your whole family will love. You don't have to fight with that 2-year-old to eat his broccoli. Now, broccoli is important. The 4th step, I think, is eat more vegetables and fruit. So we're going to get there. But it just grieves me when I see people, oh, we need to eat 5 servings of fruits and vegetables every day. Well, yes, we do, but all the while they're eating white rice and white flour. I'm like, you missed it. Why don't you start over here and get that 2-year-old, that 3-year-old eating a food that has 44 or almost 44 essential nutrients in it that will sustain his life. He'll eat that muffin. He might not eat the spinach, but he'll eat the muffin. He might not like the broccoli. Now, fruits aren't so bad. They will eat the apples and the bananas and the grapes and things like that. But do you see what I'm saying? It's food that your family is going to love. You're not going to have to talk them into eating. Yeah, they're going to have their, somebody's going to like blueberry muffins and somebody's not. So don't make blueberry muffins for that one. You know what I'm saying? But you're going to find a bread that they like. Did y'all like the cinnamon rolls? Okay, I got to tell you a story about Willie Jean. She was one of the first testimonies that came to me that started the lecture that I give now, the 3.5-hour talk. She was it. I had seen the health benefits to me, but here's the thing. I started teaching and I started sharing, and I didn't really dig into why it was happening so much for me yet. So I would share my little health benefits of my energy, and I was not constipating anymore. My sinus congestion had gone away. One of my children's warts had gone away. I didn't crave sugar anymore, and all these things. And then I'd do a little baking demonstration. This lady, I'd done this little thing at the community center. She heard me, and the newspaper wrote an article about me, and this little lady heard me, and she called, and everybody thought we were a bakery every time they do an article about it. That's why Fox 5, we kept saying, please tell them we are not a bakery. We are not a bakery, But she thought we were, and she called, and actually I said, she goes, I just can't do this. And she was an older woman. I said, you know what? I'll make bread for you. And so I made the bread for her. Well, her favorite was cinnamon rolls. And back then I made them with cream cheese icing. And so I made Willie Jean cinnamon rolls with cream cheese icing. Well, she said, my husband, he's not really keen on this whole grain. He wants his white flour, and we're Southern, so she made biscuits every night for him. She said, I'd eat dinner every night, but after every meal, I had a cinnamon roll with cream cheese icing. I mean, what a pill to swallow, right? Cinnamon roll with cream cheese icing. Well, after about a month, I answered the phone one day, hello, and this was what I got. It's the bread. It's got to be the bread. I'm like, excuse me? Hello? Who is this? This is Willie Jean. She said, I have for 3 years been seeing 3 different doctors trying to get my cholesterol down. And my cholesterol has dropped 85 points in this last month, and all I changed was the bread. Cinnamon rolls with cream cheese icing, mind you. And all I changed is the bread, and my cholesterol has dropped 85 points in a month. She said, it's got to be the bread. That's all I did. Average testimony is 85 to 100 points in a month. People send me their blood work. I have it. Hundreds of testimonies. Every nutrient to bring down fat, bring down your cholesterol levels are in the bread, in the whole grains, if it's freshly milled. Every nutrient's there. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. Psalm 104, I believe it is. I'll have to look it up. Psalm 104, I believe it's verse 16, says that God gave man bread to strengthen and nourish the heart. Heart disease was not an issue, not prevalent anyway. Every now and then you'd hear somebody prior to 1910. This is huge. So how important is this first step? And think about this too. This is something you need to think about. If you start milling your wheat and making your own bread, do you know how much junk you're getting rid of? Because step number 5, I believe it is you got to get rid of the junk. You are 90% there if you start making your own bread and make all the cakes and cookies and muffins and pancakes and any kind of flour product that your family eats. You're 90% there, right there. You don't have much more junk to get rid of because most of the junk in the grocery store, have you ever thought about this, is an altered grain product. Once you leave the perimeter and you start going up and down the aisles, after you pass the mayonnaise and mustard and the fruits and vegetable can aisle, think about it. You go home tonight and you think about it. Every other food aisle is an altered grain product. You got your white rice, your pasta, you got your cake mixes and brownie mixes and all that. Then you got the bread aisle. You got the toxic waste aisle, which is cereal. Don't let this fool you. Whole grain Lucky Charms, woohoo. That is surely going to help my child get better, don't you think? Yeah. So, you see what I'm saying? It's an amazing. I find bread scriptures just about everywhere you can imagine, and sometimes in the most unique places, and this was by far the most unique one that I had found, if I can find it. Deuteronomy 24, verse 6. In this scripture, I was reading along, you get to the law and you start getting kind of bogged down, And I was reading along, and this whole chapter is about borrowing and lending, about doing business. God was instructing them how to deal with their fellow man. So I get down there, and, God has, in those days, God was instructed them that, if you came and borrowed something from me, you would leave with me something of value. You would give this pledge to me. And this was a pledge saying, I will pay you back. I will pay you back. So you'd leave this pledge with me, and you'd go off with what you needed, borrowed. God had a law about what you could take as a pledge. Deuteronomy 24, verse 6 says, do not take a millstone as a pledge, for you will be taking his life. I couldn't believe that when I read that. That woke me up in the middle of the law, bogging down with the law, because government studies now show that whole grains reduce the risk of cancer, heart disease, diabetes, obesity, all these things. God knew it all along. He says, it is your life. That is your life. So how important is this? It is your life. So I encourage you, if you haven't started here, get started. If you have started and you kind of started I do this a little bit. I used to do it and I don't anymore. I hope I get you pumped up to go again, because it is absolutely amazing. Now, and if you never made another change in your diet, you would see significant health benefits. I've seen people. I've seen people that smoke and do diet sodas regularly and suffering from irritable bowel syndrome, was about to be scoped for cancer, and I took her a dozen muffins. And 3 days later, I took her a loaf of bread and another dozen muffins. And 3 or 4 days later, I took her a loaf of bread and another dozen muffins. And do you know, by 2 weeks, her bowels were totally normal? Totally normal. And you can hear all this explained on the CD or on the 5 CD set. That's 3.5 hours long, or on the video. Absolutely amazing. So, one basic premise must prevail. What is it? Eat real food. Okay? Number 1, real bread. Now, I do need to tell you something here. Do not be deceived by the whole grain labeling that's out there. Whole grain is a legal term. Whole wheat is not. Whole wheat can be anything, just so you know. So that loaf of whole wheat bread can be anything. That bag of whole wheat flour, they partially debran it, they partially degerm it, and they remove the oil so that it can sit on the shelf forever and ever and ever. Or for a long time anyway, probably not forever and ever, but it does have a shelf life. That's why, how many of you ever tried to use store-bought whole wheat flour? And you got a very dry, very, you know, just very dense, nothing nice. You had to put white flour with it to make it nice. That is why, because the oils have been removed. Not so. I used store-bought whole wheat flour before I learned about grinding my own wheat and making my bread, because I knew whole wheat flour was better for you. And I had to put white flour in it. And I'll never forget, when I read the information about grinding my own wheat and making my own bread, I am an all or nothing kind of person. So I thought, okay, it is all going out, and I am doing this. I don't care if we have to choke it down. I literally thought I was going to choke this bread down, because I knew what the store-bought whole wheat flour made. And I'll never forget making my first batch of bread and my first batch of muffins. It was like, oh my goodness. And now I make brownies and cupcakes and pound cake and every kind of dessert you can imagine, everything. And yes, you can make it out of this. I get intrigued by people who say, can I make pancakes out of this flour? Can I make it? It's flour. They've been doing it for a long, long time. They've been making everything out of this. So yes, you can. So I'm absolutely amazed. But so whole wheat is not a legal term. So y'all start looking at labels. I encourage you, just go down the bread aisle. Those of you that have been doing bread and you haven't bought bread in years and years, like I haven't even gone down the bread aisle in a long time, except to go buy some little visual aids. And in fact, my son asked me why I had these up there. And I'll tell you in just a minute. No, they are not healthy. But in case you were like, Cheetos, we can eat Cheetos. Your kids would like it. But, okay, so read labels. Whole wheat. That bread that says whole wheat, read it. It's probably white flour with some caramel coloring, a little something in there to make it brown. And but whole grain is a legal term. But here's what whole grain, commercially milled whole grain flour, when those steel rolling mills came on the scene and displaced the local millers, that's what came on the scene. And that's what put everybody else out of business, and that's how flour is made. No matter what it is, that's how it's made. So you've got your white flour going over here, your bran and germ separated off. So to make 100% whole grain flour now, someone came up with a formula, a legal formula, that they now take the white flour and they put the bran and germ back in. So they recombine it. I don't know what the formula is. I don't know if it's what goes in, what is what comes out. I don't know. But it's a legal formula. All right. So let's say at best it really is what was there. Probably not. Where are they getting? Well, anyway. Anyway, who knows what it is? But it's not like how you mill yours. You pour the grain in and all the stuff comes out and you use it all. So somebody came up with a formula. They recombine it. All right. So let's say that's all right. Okay. So I'm looking at this bread label. Gluten. Gluten is not a bad guy, just so you know. We'll talk about gluten maybe later on too. But gluten is not a bad guy. Gluten is the protein portion of some of your grains. Wheat being the highest in gluten. Gluten is what makes bread rise with yeast. You have to have it for it to stretch and rise and be able to do that. So remember what I told you white flour is? protein and starch. It is basically gluten and starch, all right? Somebody figured out how to extract the gluten out. It's really, you can actually do the process at home. But they figured out that they could take the gluten portion away from the white flour. And they sell it, we sell it, gluten, wheat gluten, okay? In the realm of food, gluten is not considered flour. Even though it's the protein portion of white flour, it is not considered flour. So for your homework for this week, I would like for you to go down the bread line, the aisle, and look at the whole grain bread, the 100% whole grain bread. The first item, first ingredient is probably going to be 100% whole grain something, flour, okay? The third, fourth, maybe fifth ingredient is going to be gluten. So this 100% whole grain bread that has to abide by a legal formula of proportion of white flour to bran and germ, they can add all this gluten to it because it's not legally considered flour. So what do you think that does to the fiber to flour ratio there? It's going to mess it all up. And I promise you, bread loaded with lots of gluten, extra gluten, is going to constipate you. It's not going to do what you're going to that store to buy that whole grain bread to do. And that really grieves me. Because you watch, in X amount of years, people will go, oh, well, I tried the whole grain bread. It didn't help me. And it's not going to be the great thing that it is right now. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's really, really sad. And multigrain, that's a funny one. You know, that caramel-colored loaf of bread that's made from wheat, and then they dust it with some oatmeal, and it's multigrain. Don't think for a minute that that's going to help your constipation either. It's not going to happen. So there you go. Outside of milling your own is next to impossible. Number 2 is water. We've got to be drinking water. I'm going to go over these real quickly. Tonight we're doing real bread. Next week we're going to cover water, and my next one is gut bacteria or yogurt. A lot of people are concerned about what they're eating and not thinking about what they're drinking. Just as you would no more bathe and wash your hair in soda. That's what I did last time I taught the class. I brought a bottle of orange soda and asked this little boy to come up here and wash his hands with it. Okay, so if you would not do that on the outside of your body, why do we think that can clean the inside of your body? It's not going to happen. Exodus 23, I believe it is, God says, I will bless your bread and I will bless your water, and none of these diseases shall come upon you. We better be drinking some water. Gut bacteria, we got to get that flora reestablished, that natural flora that we have destroyed by the heavy use of antibiotics and the fact that we no longer eat a cultured dairy product such as yogurt. And when I say yogurt, I'm not talking about something that's green, highly sweetened, glows in the dark, and squeezes from a tube. I want you to get some good plain bacteria. We'll go into that. I don't say you have to eat it plain. Sweeten it with some yogurt and your own fruit. You determine how much sweetener is in there. Number 4. What's number 4? I gave it in your handout. Fresh fruits and vegetables. Yes. See, I don't have anything against fresh fruits and vegetables. We need to be eating it. We need to be eating more of it. Number 5. At some point, you're going to have to make a conscious effort to get rid of that junk. You're going to have to say, you know what? I am doing all this. And actually, I think by that point, you're going to probably feel so better, you're not going to need some of that junk that you've been eating. But you're going to have to say, you know, I've got to weigh the costs. Is this really, really improving my health, or is it taking away? And we're going to talk about robbing, the deficit that we have personally, physically, not financially. It's amazing. The food that we eat, not only is it harmful, but it robs our bodies. It steals. So is it worth the compromise? Every now and then, maybe. You might say, yeah. Every now and then you might not think long enough to withhold, you know. But at some point, there's some decisions you're going to have to make. And there's some things that you can do. to help that along. Number 6, we have got to exercise. And I'm not necessarily saying y'all all got to go out and join the gym and start running, 5 miles a day and working out and being Miss Buff and Body Beautiful. But we were made to work. I mean, God created us to work, to tend the fields, to subdue the earth. I mean, look at how we were made. We're made to move. There are also parts of your body that can only function if you're moving, okay? And it really weakens the heart muscle if you aren't exerting it. So we gotta exercise, whatever it is. One of the last nutrition classes that I took up in Indianapolis, I went for my certification to be a nutrition counselor, and he calls it, he does not like calling it exercise. He calls it a fun, sweaty activity. Because you think exercise, what do? I gotta go exercise. No, you need to go do a fun, sweaty activity. Whatever it is, dance, whatever, I don't care. All right, and then number 7, interestingly enough, as what's the word I'm looking for, sedative or stationary as we become, couch potatoes, we really don't rest. We'll work all night, we work 7 days a week, we don't stop. So we've got to learn to rest. So those are my 7 steps. I'm giving them to you now. Really not that hard, but we got to do number 1 first. First things first. Now, before I start cooking, I want to go over real quick. Each week I'm going to do some myth busters. How many of y'all have heard bread will make you fat? You start dieting, what's the first thing you're supposed to get rid of? Bread. I am telling you what happens when you start getting rid of your bread. You get tired, run down, and after about 3 days of no bread, all you want is a brownie or a candy bar or something. And you just got to go, and then you just do it. And then you're like, well, I blew it now. I am not kidding you. Bread, real bread made of real whole grains, so nourishes you, so satisfies you. What did Jesus say? I am the real bread of life. He who comes to me shall what? Shall be satisfied. It fills you up. You won't crave. Your biggest dilemma now will be if you eat a good breakfast, which you should. Not eating breakfast is a horrible thing. Not eating breakfast would be like me starting out on my Florida trip Thursday morning with no gas. I'm going to have to stop. 10 minutes down the road. What am I going to do tomorrow? What am I going to do? I'm going to wash my car. I'm going to vacuum my car. I'm going to go get it filled up. I'm going to check the oil, right? Then why do we start our days empty? And they've done study after study and found that women who eat breakfast, particularly whole grains for breakfast, they're less hungry all during the day, and they are have less tendency to be obese and gain weight. Okay? So don't let anybody tell you bread makes you fat. Yes, the bread in the grocery store does. Yes, that's why we're fat. I'll give it that. But let's fix the bread. Let's don't take it away. Let's fix it. So we need to be eating real whole grain. How about that eating healthy is expensive? Yeah, you heard that one? Okay, I want to show you something. I think this is just hilarious. You're going to love this. Okay, so this box of cereal costs $3.99, or it did a few years ago. I've had it around for a while. And it's probably just as good as I don't know that, it's probably still like it was made, okay? Okay, so it has all kinds of stuff in it. And then where's the serving size? Okay, this is what I think just cracks me up. Okay, so this costs $3.99. Guess how many servings it says in here? Okay, that's the other thing about calories you need to watch too. You read the label and you go, oh, there's only 110 calories per serving. Okay, so my goodness, that's not bad at all. Do you know how many people it says this feeds? 13. You've got 13 kids at your house, spend the night party, and you're going to buy this one box of cereal, and it's going to feed 13 kids for $3.99. I just think that's hilarious. I don't remember how much this one costs, but this box is, how many servings? This one doesn't say how many servings per box. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's 13 as well. So 13. So you can feed 26 kids right there. 26 for $3.99. 1 dozen muffins. We're fixing to make some muffins. Cost $3.46 to make. And I'm telling you, you put some fruit out there with that muffin, they could eat it. And I bet they probably would only eat one. Okay, so if you did make 2 dozen for 13 kids, well, because one wouldn't get any. But okay, so you spent $7. You spent $7 here, $8 here. I bet that's still not going to feed 13 kids. I think you're going to have to buy 4 or 5 boxes here, right? Isn't that amazing? So is eating healthy expensive? No, look at that. Okay, wait a minute. I like this one. The box of Pop-Tarts, $2.39. Okay, this says it has 8 servings. Oh, yeah. Yeah, we're going to give them each 1 Pop-Tart. So if I've got 12 or 13, now I'm going to have to buy 2, so it's $4.78. Organic wheat, raw honey, I can make muffins. Lots of them for pennies. Okay, so that's really interesting. So don't let anybody tell you eating healthy is expensive. It's not. Eating unhealthy is really expensive because you're going to consume lots of that food. It's going to take many of those things to fill you up. How about this bag of Cheetos? I'm going to put this bag of Cheetos in my child's lunch. I love this one too. Guess how many servings are in here? Not 13, but close. And this really cracks me up. 9 servings in this bag. So you have 9 children. I have 9 children. So I'm going to go, okay, y'all gonna all get Cheetos. It says it's about 21 pieces. So I'm like, okay, y'all count out 21 pieces, and that's what y'all get. It's about, so the one that doesn't get 21 is going to be real upset. All right, so that's $2.89. When I did this a few years ago, it must have been cantaloupe season. It was in the summertime. And a little bowl like this only costs $1.81 for the cantaloupe. Today, my daughter paid $3.25. Now, this is the most expensive way to buy it. But nonetheless, 2 or 3 kids could probably eat that as a side dish, or 2 easily. So what do you think? I mean, one of my kids would eat this, the whole bag. 1 sitting, 1 movie, 2 movies. I mean, 2 bags if it's, whatever. If I gave it to them, they'd love it. So anyway, it's not. And this is going to fill them up. This is going to nourish them. This is going to have their vitamin A in it, probably some vitamin C. Very little calories. Very little calories. Did you know? I mean, I don't remember how many. It's like 50 calories for a half a cantaloupe. I mean, okay. And so this one, the calories are 160 calories per serving. 160 calories for 21 Cheetos. 160. You could eat 4 of these bowls and not be there yet. Or what happened? Do you see?
How many servings? 9. 160
9
times 9.
Yeah.
And if your kids sit there and eat all that.
Yeah. 160 times 9. 900. 1,400 and something calories. Oh yeah, don't go there. Oh, and it has less than 1 gram of fiber, so they're not going to poop. Their teeth are going to be orange. They're going to be cranky from all the artificial colors and flavors. It's not worth it. I'm not kidding. It's not worth it. And we're not even talking about the money you're going to save because you don't have to go to the doctor. You don't have to buy antihistamines. Headaches. I don't know why. I mean, I've had maybe 6 headaches in 20 years. Advil goes out of code or, out of date. It expires before we finish this bottle. Used to every winter I'd buy the cold and flu medicine, the sinus medicine, and the Advil or whatever. I'm trying not to say name brands. But anyway, you see what I'm saying? An apple. Do you know it takes 16 apples to make 1 cup of apple juice? How many of y'all can drink more than 1 cup of apple juice in 1 sitting? Your children can. Calories, sugar, all that's still there. Could you eat 16 apples? Okay. Do you see what I'm saying? You're probably going to go home and go, I paid money for her to just tell me to eat an apple instead of an apple-flavored fruit bar? I'm not kidding. This is not rocket science. Just eat real food. Just keep it real. Just keep it real. It's just really, really easy. Whole grain bread does not taste good. All right, I guess I need to make some so y'all know that it does taste good. You already had Ezekiel bread and you had a cinnamon roll with icing. We already talked about labeling. I think I gave you this. Did y'all get this? The Truth is Out. Did I give you these? Somewhere I made copies of them. I need to find them. Hey, Maggie, will you stick your head in there and ask them to look on the printer? I made a bunch of copies of this paper and see if it's a single sheet. But scientific research has proven that a diet rich in whole grains can prevent and even reverse heart disease and diabetes. There's phytochemicals that block the DNA damage and suppress cancer growth. Wheat bran contains predominantly insoluble fiber, which includes cellulose, and they found that it may protect people from diverticular disease. Wheat bran is one of the most effective fiber laxatives because why do you want to buy that fiber drink stuff and add it to your drink? You don't need that. Yes. I love that commercial about where's the cardboard? Or there's no cardboard in here. This has to be, well, yeah, whatever. You know, I mean, do you really have to buy those things? No. Grain fibers are the best source of cleansing fibers. You will know that you go. You just will. And we need to do that. 12-year study conducted among women to investigate the relationship between intake of dietary fiber and weight gain over time found that those who consumed more whole grains consistently weighed less than women who consumed less whole grains. People who include whole grains in their diet reduce the risk of various kinds of cancer. Just goes on and on. Read this. You will be intrigued like I was. There's a lot of junk out there, and we just need to know the truth. People ask me all the time, how much bread do I need to eat? My answer to that is, how much Jesus do you need? I mean, you know what I'm saying? How much Jesus do you need? All right. I'm going to make some muffins for you tonight here, and we're going to go over a few practical applications. We've already talked about some of them, but let's get cooking real quick. How many of you did you say do not own a grain mill? A few of you? Okay, but you mill, I mean somebody mills for you or something? Okay. Well, then let me show you real quick the grain mill. This is not a getting started class, so I'm just going to be real brief. This is one of our electric mills. I want to show you how easy this is. I forgot to go over my books. Let me just tell you a few books here that I really love. Healthy Eating, greatest book there is. What the Bible says about healthy living. Really, honestly, you don't need anything else. If you read this, you will be so encouraged and you will go, I can do this. Eat only what God, 3 basic principles. Eat only what God created for food. Eat it as close to the way as God created as possible. And avoid food addictions. If you're addicted to something, it's probably not something God created. It's something man has altered, and he puts all kinds of stuff in there to make you crave it. So you will buy his product. I'm telling you, they laugh all the way to the bank. It's just really, really amazing.
Developing these chemicals to put in the food.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes, absolutely. Yes, they do. They absolutely do. And they take foods off the market that might be healthy and good for you if you're not consuming enough. So, you know, it's absolutely sad. A lady that we know wrote a cookbook to go along with Dr. Russell's book. She is not a gourmet chef. She's just a down-home cooking kind of person and very basic, but there are some great recipes in this Healthy Living cookbook. It's just amazing, some of the things in there. Healthy Foods, this is one of my favorite authors, Leanne Ellie. This is great, particularly for those of you with some young kids. There's a chapter on fats, proteins, carbohydrates, how to get back to eating at home. And listen, I know how hard it is. I think I've had a great day if I have fixed breakfast and dinner for my family and we've sat down and eaten together. It is, our lives are crazy the older we've gotten. Those of you with young kids, I want to encourage you. This is wonderful. I mean, when they were all young, you didn't go too many places with 7 young kids. It was just not worth it. So, you know, we stayed at home, and every day was eat at home and eat dinner together, and it was just breakfast at our house was big. Now it's like, who's home tonight? How many? My son goes, how many? It's the same question. So I understand, but we gotta at least try, you know, and then make things. You know, I made pizza for us tonight here, you know, so try to make things that your family can eat on the run or, you know, whatever. I take my bread wherever I go. Grains of Truth, 13 different grains. She writes a chapter on each. Not a cookbook per se, but she usually gives you 2 or 3 recipe ideas with that grain. Crockpot oatmeal is fabulous. I thought about making it for you tonight. Maybe I'll make it one day, but before we go. But you know, so many people, that's if you go on a diet and or the doctor tells you to eat whole grains, they'll say oatmeal because you can buy oatmeal in the grocery store. So those are some great books. This, my philosophy in life, whole grains every day, every way. If you want some really, really good recipes from very exquisite to very simple and practical, not just baked goods, boiled grains. One week I know I'm going to make the boiled wheat berry salad. It's got apples and mint and an orange dressing. Absolutely fabulous. Fabulous. I have taken it on many trips with me so that's how I can keep eating my bread even on the road. This is a wonderful, wonderful book. And then my cookbook, of course, and then our holiday recipe books that are just so reasonably priced that it just, so these are great tools for you to have. All right. I'm running a little behind schedule here, but I think I can still get this cooked and ready for y'all to eat. I'm actually going to attempt to make 4 dishes for you in an hour. So, and have them done and ready to go too. So one of my favorite grains, I use a lot of red wheat, white wheat, and things like that, but I've really discovered the Ezekiel mix. We sell it, this is one recipe. The recipe is in our cookbook, and this makes 1 batch of bread. You follow the recipe exactly. But I have really come to love this mixture of grains and beans because it's a complete protein. The flavor of it is really nice. So I've gotten to where I'll take a bag and I'll mix up those grains and beans really, really well. And I'll grind some of it into flour and I'll make my muffins out using this for the flour. Or I'll make my pancakes using this as the flour. So that's what I want to do for you tonight. I'm going to just, I need 2 1/4 cups of flour. So I'm going to mill just a little bit of this. I'll mark this so that I know that it's not a full bag anymore, so I won't mistakenly try to use it in my regular recipe. So here's how easy it is to mill. You ready for this? You're gonna. Years ago when I started milling and I would tell people that I milled my own wheat, made my own bread, they looked at me like, you do what? And I could just visualize what they were visualizing. I just don't know what they thought that I did. I think they visualized a barn, the big stone, the ox in the harness going around and around. And I think they probably thought, okay, I know she doesn't live somewhere where she could have that, so she's probably out there going around. And so, I mean, they were just like, oh, man, I'm not kidding you. If you can get a flour canister out of your cabinet, you can mill the flour. It is that easy. And that's what I tell people. I tell people all the time, this is so easy to do. I said, if you already cook, if you already take the flour canister out of your cabinet, even if you're using Bisquick or whatever, you know, the already made stuff, this is really, really easy. If you do not know there is a room in your house called a kitchen and that you've never turned on your oven, and I'm amazed, we have looked at houses, we've been trying to move for lots of years now, and we look at houses, and one house was like 4 or 5 years old. The oven still had the owner's manual in it, and I'm like, how do they live like this? So if that's you, then yes, this is going to be an adjustment, all right? But it's okay, it's worth it, because by a week, you'll have so much energy, you'll just be wanting to make everything in the world. So, okay, so here we go. We have a, this is called the Separator Cup. You got a little flat side to the cup there. You got a tab here on the lid. You're just going to match that flat side of the cup up with that tab. Snap the cup on. It doesn't screw or anything like that. You just snap it into place. Snap the lid down. Lift this little tube up and out and insert it in the port of the mill. This mill has a basic use requirement, and that is turn the mill on before you put the grain in. So I just turn it on, pour my grain in. hopper here will hold 8 cups of grain, and that mills into 12 cups of flour. A cup of grain makes a cup and a half of flour, so I know that I need 2 1/4 cups of flour. So I've milled a cup and a half, cup and 3/4. Did you hear the pitch go up? When that pitch goes up, the mill just cleaned itself. My kind of machine. This is not something you don't even worry. It does not have to be dishwasher safe, because you do not have to put it in the dishwasher. You do not have to clean it. It just cleaned itself. And really, other than that, wiping it down, maybe if it gets a little dusty, a little grungy every now and then. How often do you clean your flour canister? People say, can you wash this? Yes, if you need to, but how often do you clean your flour canister? But you can if you want to. If you're just that kind of person, you can wash that. A little flour, really fine flour, always collects in the cup. It's perfectly fine to use, and I usually just bump it like that and drop it in the, empty it into the canister here. First time you use your mill, run a couple of cups of flour, grain, run a couple of cups of grain through the mill and discard it. I tell people use your white rice. You need to get rid of it anyway, okay? So there we have it. So there is our flour. Now what I usually do while this is milling, I would be going and getting out my other ingredients. So I'm going to mix these muffins up just very, very quickly here. So you can see that didn't take very much time at all. And the muffin recipe is so very easy. I don't know if you have your cookbook, but it's on page 36 of your cookbook. But watch how easy this is. 2 1/4 cups of flour. 2 1/4 cups of flour. A teaspoon of baking powder, baking soda, and salt. I had it already measured out, but it doesn't take that long to measure it. I'm going to make a banana muffin variation, so I'm going to add a little cinnamon and nutmeg. So there's my dry ingredients. People always look at me and go, do I need all this equipment? No. Muffins, wire whisk in a bowl. And I have all the equipment, and this is what I use no matter what. So wire whisk in a bowl. Always when you're making muffins or quick breads, you're going to whisk those dry ingredients together and make a little well in the center. And then you're going to add your wet things. I make my egg. So see how easy this recipe is? An egg, a cup of buttermilk, my olive oil and honey, 1/2 cup of each. I measured my oil first and then my honey, and it will slide out. Sitting there longer, it doesn't slide as well. I love these measuring cups. I don't know if you've ever used them, but they're fabulous because you don't have to look on the side. They have the ledge so you can just look down, and when you're pouring out of gallon jugs of honey and olive oil, that's very handy to just be able to look down on it instead of down here. Even though that's a great waist exercise, and we all need to be exercising a little bit more. And then I'm going to put in my banana. This is about a cup. It's about 2 mashed bananas. Great way to use those bananas that nobody is now going to eat because they have turned very, very dark. So just mash them up and put them in the freezer. Okay. And then I'm going to add a little millet because millet is a wonderful, wonderful people food that we feed to the birds. Okay? It is not bird seed that you are eating. It is people food that we feed to the birds. It's a staple grain in other countries. Wonderfully nutritious. Very broad spectrum of B vitamins. Just really, really good for you. Very easy to digest. So if you've got someone with a real serious compromised immune system and weakened digestion and really going through a difficult time, millet is a great, great food for them. So wonderful baby food. Great baby food. I did 1/4 cup. It's in the recipe's in my red book here. A little bit of vanilla, very carefully measured. This is our new line of organic extracts. So a little bit of vanilla here. Okay, I'm actually going to use it for my rice pudding. All right. So there. How fast was that? And now they're going to bake in 15. So I'm going to put them in my, This is what I love about the Wonder Mill. The canister will stack right there. Here we go. Going to scoop it in my muffin pans. These are our new USA pans. They're made in the USA. And they are truly, truly, do you love them? They're truly non-stick. Everybody that's tried them, if you ever try them, you won't want to go back because they're truly non-stick. Notice I am not spraying these. No, you do not have to spray them, not even the cake pans. They will just like come clean. So it's a steel and it's coated with silicone. It's a silicone. I discovered an ice cream scoop. Why didn't I discover this years ago? I don't know. So look how fast that is to dip those muffins out. Okay. All right, so this is banana millet muffins. Breakfast, what do you need? You don't need Frosted Flakes. It's going to cost you twice what these delicious banana muffins are going to cost you, right? You could feed, well, 13 kids, one would have to do without, but you could feed a dozen kids this, all right? And you get a bowl of cantaloupe or some fruit or, you know, put something else out there. Next week, we're going to talk about adding a smoothie to this. Get that good cultured yogurt. What else do they need? There was a time there when I would get up on Sunday morning and I would make a batch of muffins because I could go down in the kitchen, have them whipped up and in the oven, run take my shower, and then they'd be done by the time I got out of the shower. Then I'd get dressed, make smoothies, and put it in paper cups. And call the 7 kids. It's time to go to church. Here. Get in the car. Get in the car. Here's your muffin. Here's your smoothie. Get in the car. Here's your muffin. Here's your smoothie. Get in the car. Here's your muffin. Here's your smoothie. Get in the car. And that's the way we went. So it's great. You don't need a whole lot more. Yes. They're going to cook it for 15 minutes at 400 degrees. Thereabouts. The banana ones may take a little longer because of the extra moisture in there. Yes. You do, she does the Ezekiel muffins all the time, and she adds chocolate chips. 3/4 of a cup of miniature chocolate chips. And she chops a half a bag of fresh spinach. They love them, okay? We're gonna try that. They don't. We're gonna try that on the Eat Your Fruits and Vegetables week. There's all kinds of ways. I make a smoothie with the dark berries and put salad greens in there. And my grandkids, they say, will you make us some sherbet? They do not taste it. They do not see it. It is phenomenal. Y'all can try it this week. Get the frozen, the berries, the dark ones, will totally hide the greens. And kale, very high in calcium. Put a handful of kale in there. A little shot of agave if you need to sweeten it up just a little bit. Great. Frozen smoothie. A lot of times I'll need just a little bit of juice, but I'll buy some of those natural like juices that not the filtered ones, but in the produce section, the Naked, some of those brands, and I just use a little bit just to get the just to have a little liquid in there. And so one of those little bottles that's so expensive will last me for numerous smoothies, just enough to go. So that is so cool. We're going to do that. I'm going to try it. That sounds fabulous. All right. You what? Yes. Well, that was years ago. How I had never thought about using the Ezekiel mix for anything else other than the Ezekiel bread. And I knew that our family kind of got tired of the bread all the time, but I love that combination of grains and beans. It's a complete protein. And a lady told me that she was hypoglycemic. And she said, I've fallen in love with the Ezekiel mix. She said, I work, I take Saturdays my bake day, and I make little mini muffins, and I freeze 2 of them in little sandwich Ziploc bags. And she said, then when it's time for me to go to work, I grab, 1 or 2 baggies out of the freezer. Then when it's my blood sugar slump snack time, she said, I've learned to eat those Ezekiel muffins, and my blood sugar is just stabilized. It's staying like this. That's another thing. Whole grains stabilize your blood sugar. White bread, white sugar shoots it up, shoots you down, shoots it up, shoots it down. Whole grains stabilize it. They keep you here. They cause the sugar and the energy to be released much more slowly, so it does not put that demand on insulin. Don't all that stuff you're reading about bread, carbohydrates, putting demands on insulin, that is the white flour junky stuff. It is not the whole grains. Whole grains are the key. Dr. Anderson from the University of Kentucky did extensive research, taking people and putting them in the hospital, insulin-dependent diabetics, and doing studies on them, taking them off of their high-protein, low-carb diets and putting them on a high-carb, low-protein diet, but the carbohydrates were real fruits and vegetables and real whole grains. And one of the studies, like 16 out of 18, came out of the hospital off of insulin. You know, this is amazing. And his studies were repeated all over the world. Okay? Go ahead and tell me. It's 8 o'clock? Yes, I know. The class is over at 9. Okay, yes, I know. They're worried. We're okay. The muffins are cooking. We're going to, so that's what I want you to see. So there, you've already had several great breakfast breads. The cinnamon rolls with cream cheese icing. Remember, lower your cholesterol. Eat one after every meal. I mean, what's wrong with that? I want to make for you also tonight, okay, a lot of people think bread, loaves of bread, or you know, you might go pancakes, muffins, cinnamon rolls. You think of that as bread. But what about boiled grains and beans? Okay, so I want to make for you black-eyed peas and rice. That's bread. That's serving of whole grains and beans. It's just wonderful, wonderfully nutritious. So I'm going to show you how easy this is to make. These are my Fissler pressure cookers. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Next to my mill and my mixer, this is the most important tool in my house, is a pressure cooker. I laughed. I always thought, no way, I don't need a pressure cooker. I don't, you know, I'm not going to do that. And as soon as I first started using them, I went to one class on it, and I'm like, oh my goodness. First recipe I ever tried in it was a black beans and rice, and from dry black beans and brown rice that normally takes hours for black beans, an hour for brown rice, prep time and everything. The first time I tried the recipe was 30 minutes. We were eating it. I'm like, say what? So I'm fixing to make for you some black-eyed peas and rice. Black-eyed peas, of course, don't need to soak at all. So we're going to just put a little bit of, this is olive oil that I added a little garlic, well, not a little, a lot of garlic. The recipe's in our red book. We call it olive oil dipping sauce. Garlic, Italian seasoning, and a little bit of salt. I make this up by the quart and keep it next to my stove, and I cook with it everywhere. I fry eggs in it, grilled cheese sandwiches in it. I use it to season my peas and rice. It's just fabulous. And these are our new little, did y'all see these new little pots? Aren't they adorable? They're porcelain enamel on steel. They've got graduations inside. What I love about these new pots is they have a lid that goes with it. So now I'll just put my lid on here and can store it like that. I'm going to put in, these are one of our brown rice blends. It's got some wild rice and several kinds of blends. Black-eyed peas. I'm doubling, you should have the recipe is in your handout. I'm doubling it, so I'll have some left over for tomorrow's lunch because I'm not cooking. Nope, they're dry. This is the wild and whole grain brown rice. It's called the Lundberg Wild Blend. We have several, and I've used lots of them, and I love them. The orange one, the pink one, and the black one are my favorites for the black-eyed peas and rice. Okay, so there's that. And now look how easy this is. I'm going to just put 4 cups of beef broth. This is our Imagine beef broth. I love the Imagine brand broths. Okay, I'm going to add a teaspoon of salt. Actually 2 because I'm doubling the recipe. And then some pepper. And then I am going to add, to kick it up a little bit, and hey, it's another way to get your vegetables in here. I'm going to add one of our seasoning mixes. This is Popeye's Passion. It is dehydrated vegetables, spinach, onions, carrots, tomatoes, celery, cabbage, bell pepper, parsley, garlic, and paprika. No salt, no MSG, just real dehydrated vegetables. So I get it by the quart, and I put it in these jars, or by the pound. We sell them in the little, I think these are 4-ounce, 2-ounce packages, or, sorry, I needed to turn this all the way up. And I'm just going to put a few tablespoons of this seasoning mix in here, or they're dip mixes really, but I've discovered using them for all kinds of things. So I'm going to put like 4 tablespoons since I'm doubling this. And that'll just give me some vegetables and a little seasoning. So easy. All right. I'm going to give this a stir. Hang on, I'll get your question just a second. And I'm going to put this lid on. If I had left it on high like it was supposed to be, it turned off and I didn't know it. It would have already been just about ready to come up to pressure. With the Fissler pressure cookers, it's got a little lever here that you lock that lid into place. So now I'm going to lock it into place. In just a few minutes, the steam will start coming out and it'll start building pressure. And once it builds pressure, I'm only going to need to cook it 20 minutes and they're going to be done. So in less than 30 minutes, I can have this pot of black-eyed peas and rice. The muffins, if I were doing this for dinner, on the muffin recipe, instead of banana, I would have probably done the corn muffin variation. I would have used corn flour for my flour. I would have added a cup of whole kernel corn and a cup of hot pepper jack cheese to the basic recipe, and pop that in the oven. It's ready in 15. This is ready in 20, or this will be maybe 25 minutes because it'll take a little time for it to come up to pressure. I got dinner on the table.
Is that variation in your book too?
Yes, the corn muffin variation is in here. Keep it simple. I had just a few basic recipes when I started. The muffin was one of them, and that's why there's so many variations there, because, and this is what I discovered, find a basic recipe that works. You do not need a whole muffin cookbook, though I may write one because I have so many variations now to that recipe, but it'll be the basic recipe, and then here's what to do to it. I've added, like she said, add chocolate chips and spinach. I would have never thought of that. Chocolate chips and strawberries or raspberries. There's so many things you can do. If you have a good basic recipe that doesn't mind if you dump this in, that in, this in, that in. Okay? So that's how it's easy. Yes? I did double the recipe. The recipe is in your handout. What did I do wrong? Oh, you are so very right. Yeah, I need another one. Hey, can you get me another beef broth? You are very right. I thought I needed the quart for the double, and you are right. See, I was thinking it's 2 parts liquid to rice, and I forgot about the black-eyed peas. Thank you. I told you I was kind of brain dead today. Thank you so very much. Yeah, it needs another quart.
Quick question. In your
Yes.
olive oil mixture, I heard somebody say, what about the garlic? Was it fresh garlic?
Yes, it was fresh garlic.
You don't have to refrigerate
No, I simmer it. I bring it up. I bring it to just where the garlic is simmering. I heat it, and then I just turn the heat off, because if you take it beyond that, the garlic will actually burn. But I've never had a problem with the garlic going bad or spoiling or anything. Of course, we use it up pretty quickly, but I leave it sitting on my counter, and it's just fine. Just fine. Garlic's a preservative, and so is olive oil. So, oh, thank you so much. That would have not been fun. So, whoop. So I actually didn't mean to double the whole thing. Never mind. So, yeah. I was thinking I had to double it to use the quart, and I just splashed all over myself. All right. So that is that recipe.
brown rice.
Yep.
Like, you go in the grocery store, is Mahatma brown rice?
Um,
Brown rice?
I don't know. I'd have to go look. I mean, if it says brown rice, it should be brown. I mean, you know what I'm saying. It should be brown rice. So I think you're okay there. It's, some people think white rice is a whole grain because it looks like a whole grain, but they've polished the bran off. So you just do want to make sure you are getting a brown rice. And as far as I know, like minute rice and things like that, it's fully cooked and dehydrated. So it's, you know, that might be a convenience food that's not so bad if it's brown, as long as it's brown. But the problem is most of the rice out there is white. And the biggest thing I think you would need to be careful of, grains, like I said earlier, store indefinitely except for brown rice and oat groats. Those two will go rancid after about a year, 6 months to a year. So that would be my biggest concern about, you know, the grocery store. Whole grains are more popular now, so they may have a little bit faster turnover. But that was one thing I know with oatmeal. If you ever grind your own oats, roll your own oats, the taste difference is night and day from the oatmeal you're going to buy in the store. And I think it's because it's rancid, it's stale. It's, you know, I just really do think that that's probably why a lot of people don't like oats. If you ever eat freshly rolled oats, or like our oats that we do sell rolled oats here. It's the only processed grain we sell. But you'll notice a distinct taste difference over the box that you buy in the store. Okay? All right. I'm trying to decide if I have time to make both of the dishes that I wanted to make for you. I think I do. We'll see. I think I do. Because I'm going to make a pasta Alfredo for you in the pressure cooker, but I'm also going to make a rice pudding, and the pasta Alfredo only takes like 3 minutes, so I think we're doing fine. Oh, yep, this is rice pudding. A dessert. Why not have grain for dessert? Something besides cookies and brownies, that uses your flour. So I wanted to do just an incredibly delicious rice pudding. Now again, I used one of our rices. This time I used the whole grain brown rice. This is called wahini. And when Lars, were any of y'all here for Lars, the German chef that came? He is just a fabulous, fabulous teacher. And he decided he wanted to try this wahini rice for the rice pudding. He absolutely loved it. It smells good just even cooking. It almost smells like the rice pudding that you're. So it's just fabulous. Very sweet rice. For a whole grain rice pudding, though, if you're going to do it in the pressure cooker, you need to pre-cook your brown rice first, because you're going to put milk over it, and that's going to that takes too long. If you were doing a brown rice, you can't cook it for 20 minutes or so. So I pre-cooked the rice for just about 10 minutes is all. Don't want to use my garlicky spoon in here. So now I just drained the liquid off. I'm going to dump the rice in here. And this rice is absolutely delicious, just like this. It's very sweet flavor. That's why I think he chose it for the rice pudding. And see, you could even serve this like oatmeal. You could serve this for breakfast. Doesn't just have to be dessert. So I tell you, that's what I have loved about cooking this way, is I've discovered sky's the limit. I mean, if you've made pumpkin pie out of fresh, pumpkin and honey and a whole wheat crust, have pumpkin pie for breakfast. Yeah, or all you can eat donuts. My son really likes that one. I have one of my sons. His nickname is Donut Dave, and that was his birthday meal. Was I want donuts. So anyway. So here's our rice pudding. So I've got my pre-cooked rice that I just stirred in with a little butter. I don't know this recipe as well. Okay. This was actually Lars, the German chef. This was his recipe. So we're gonna see. Now he used a vanilla bean, and I forgot to get one at the store today. I'm going to just use vanilla extract. It worked. I tried it at home over Christmas because I didn't have a vanilla bean either. So I'm just going to use about a teaspoon or so of vanilla extract. Okay, this one's letting off the steam. It's building up. It's going to start building up the pressure here in just a minute. Okay, and so I'm just added my butter, my rice, and my milk and vanilla. And I'm going to put this lid on and lock it down. And then I'm going to let this come up to pressure. All right. Scoot this all over. And I'm going to do one last dish for you. These are the Induction Burners by Fissler. I love them. We didn't want to put in a stovetop here, so I just used the portable hubs, and I love them. Oh, well, it would help if I press timer. Huh, good. Thought I smelled them. I think they can go one more minute. So since I'm seeming to have timer issues, I'm going to set my little egg timer. We sell these. I love them. Okay. All right. I don't know if have any of y'all ever been to a pressure cooking class that I've done? Oh my, I'll probably do one in March. I love it. And you've probably seen me do the skillet lasagna, where I do the tomato-based sauce, the ground beef, the tomato sauce, and dump my dry noodles right in there and add a little extra water. And pressure it for 5 minutes. And it's done. That's not, yeah. This is only going to be 3 minutes. So, so I always wondered if you could do a Alfredo pasta the same way. And sure enough, Lars came, and that was on his list of things he could do. And I was like, okay, I want to see you do that. And he sent me the recipes, and I'll never forget. I was back on the loading dock talking to my kids back there. It was 11:30, and I went, oh man, I was going to try that Alfredo today. And I walked back up here, got out all the ingredients, and we were eating at 10 till 12. Eating pasta Alfredo. Wait till you see it. Absolutely phenomenal. Okay. Here's the muffins. I'll let them just cool here for just a second, but I want you to see something. Look at that. See how they just came out? No, just amazing. Absolutely amazing. All right, you ready for this? Now you have to watch this pasta Alfredo because it's amazing. Now, as Lars, the chef, says, he says, recipes are a suggestion. Okay? Just get over it. He says they're way overrated. So this recipe is supposed to have shallots in it, and I forgot, and I didn't have any shallots, and I just decided forget it. I've done onions, and I've done green onions, and that's fine too, but I just really decided I just didn't want to deal with the onions today at all. This one's not in there? Okay. Well, let's just change places. Because you don't need to sit here and watch this pot boil. We had a saying at my house, a watch pot never boils. So we'll just scoot that one over. Okay. These hubs do. My hubs do. I'm not sure why this one's not going up yet. It's about to. I'm going to just put it back. There we go. All right. Okay. So the pasta Alfredo, it calls for a cup of light cream and a cup of chicken stock. and a cup and a half of some kind of broad pasta. This is actually about 4.5 cups of pasta, so I'm going to triple the recipe. So I'm going to do 3 cups of cream and 3 cups of chicken stock, but actually I only have 2 cups of cream, so that's all I'm going to do, and it'll be fine. There it goes. It was going. I just was thinking it should have gone faster than that. Oh, I didn't need to measure that. That's 2 cups. A pint is 2 cups. So I'm going to heat the cream. And I'm going to heat the chicken broth. Y'all are quiet. Any questions? See how pretty this Imagine chicken broth is? Some of the broths you buy in the store, they're just very watery looking. I just really love the Imagine brand. Okay. Clear some of this away. Just give this a stir. I'm going to bring this up to a boil. And then I'm going to just add a little pinch of salt and pepper and a little pinch of nutmeg, actually. I'm not going to put a lot of salt, and I'll wait and taste it afterwards because I'm going to use the Parmesan cheese will have a good amount of salt in it. Okay. My pressure is up on my black-eyed peas and rice, and this is where I now start my timer. So it's going to be 20 minutes on this. Well, where did I go? There it is. I'll set this here, but actually I can set my hub, and it actually has a timer on it, and it'll turn itself off. Okay, and the rice pudding is up, and it's going to pressure for 10 minutes. Okay, and you want to turn, once the pressure comes up, you hear it, it's releasing pressure because I hadn't turned the heat down. Once it comes up to pressure, you want to turn the heat down to about medium high, wherever you need it to maintain the pressure. So that's a little over pressure, so you can release some of that pressure just a little bit, bring it back down, and now just enough heat to maintain that pressure. So I need to take my rice pudding on down. Just maintain that pressure there. There we go. All right. So those are cooking. So I've got my my Alfredo milk and broth mixture cooking here. Get my bag ready to open. All right. While we're waiting on this to come up to boil a little bit, your homework this week, I want you to look at a bread label in the grocery store, the 100% whole grain. See what you find. Tell me if you find one that doesn't have that gluten in it. Another thing I want you to do, you must eat breakfast this week. Okay? You must eat breakfast. Your kids need to eat breakfast. You need to have them eat breakfast. Actually, though, I'm going to tell you this. If this is what your kids have been eating for breakfast, or something similar, or a white flour bagel or something like that, you're better off not eating breakfast. They have found that you're actually better off fasting if you're going to eat some sugar-laden something that's going to shoot your blood sugar up. There was a study done some years ago where they fed a group of 14 healthy children the equivalent of 2 cupcakes for breakfast, okay, which is any one of those breakfast cereals. They found that not shortly after that, the children's adrenaline was 10 times normal. Do you know what adrenaline is? Y'all know what adrenaline is. It's what's getting me through this cooking class tonight because I'm frankly quite tired and was wondering, well, besides the grace of God, because I prayed really hard about 5 minutes before I came out here. I was like, Lord, I don't even know what I'm supposed to be saying tonight. So you know what adrenaline is. Adrenaline is that natural fight or flight mechanism that God put in your body. And it's for emergency use only. And so here we're feeding our kids this kind of food, and it's shooting their blood sugar up. Well, that blood sugar stimulates your body to produce adrenaline so your body will uptake that sugar. Did you know that's what gives you that extra burst of energy? That's how adrenaline works. It causes you to uptake sugar so you're like, whoa, I can conquer the world. Well, as soon as you uptake all that sugar, what happens? Your blood sugar drops. So then you go crashing down and you fall flat on your face. And these are the way our kids are living day in, day out. They're getting to school ready to beat up every kid on the playground. By the time they get inside, they are done. They are just like wanting to go to sleep. And now, you know, the teacher's sending a letter home to mom, you know, Johnny, we just can't, he doesn't want to do his work. Well, no wonder he doesn't want to do his work, you know, and then they're getting labeled with every kind of learning disability known to man. I'm like, what's up with that? When I was growing up, you just had your troublemakers, you know, one in every class, and the rest of us just wanted to go to school. All right, did you see what I just did? No boiling the pasta. I just dumped it in. Now I'm going to put my lid on here. I love skillet type pressure cookers for this. Okay, then we're going to bring that up to a boil, and that's going to cook 2, maybe 3 minutes, and then I'm going to let it naturally release. There's a way to release pressure. You can either let it come down naturally, or you can press the button here if you really want to do that, or you can take it over to the sink and run cold water on one edge of the pressure cooker, and that'll bring the pressure right down. Typically, you want to do that quick release for things that might be delicate, like your pasta or vegetables. Green beans, it only takes 2.5 minutes to pressure fresh green beans. And so I'll bring the pressure down right away, because if it only takes 2.5 minutes to cook them, as long as the pressure is up, it's cooking. All right, so if it takes 3 or 4 minutes for that pressure to come down, well, it's going to have really cooked those beans. So things delicate like vegetables and things like that, you typically bring that pressure right on down. Things like beans and rice, it doesn't matter. You can just let them naturally release. I'll probably quick release most everything here tonight because my employees want me to be quiet and go home. So anyway, as you can see, the muffins are just so easy to whip up. They're, you know, look, what time did we start? 5 till 8 did I come back here? And they're already out of the oven. So we milled them, we mixed them, we baked them in 30 minutes or less. That's amazing to me. So do you want to serve the muffins? And I made for you also a special bread. I hope, well, Saturday's bread came out perfect. Well, you know, tonight's didn't come out as beautiful. It was like tall. Bread machine is a wonderful option for a lot of people. In the early days, I didn't use a bread machine very much at all because with 7 children at home, and we were home, I was home a lot. I was home all the time, as a matter of fact. And but a bread machine loaf, we would eat it in one sitting, and then I had to make it again and make it again. So as soon as I learned to make bread in a mixer of some kind, where I could make 2 or 3 loaves of bread at a time, that was a much more practical way for me. I find that I tell people now, if you're gone a lot, if you work, if you're in and out, in and out, in and out, a bread machine is a very, very viable option for you because it really helps you get it done. The Zoharushi is the finest bread machine on the market. It's built to last. It's built to use extensively. Just really does typically a nice job tonight. I guess I could have checked my setting. I thought it was still on the setting from Saturday, and I think it would have risen a little more. Maybe it was just colder in here. I think I should have kicked up that last rise and had it rise a little longer so it would be a little taller and fluffier. This is actually a variation I came across not too long ago for gingerbread loaf. Instead of gingerbread like a cake, you put the spices like gingerbread in here. And so that's what this is. It has some rolled oats in it as well. And then I made for you an orange butter. I zested an orange, and I overfilled my butter bell here. I zested an orange, and I put a little sweetener, a little sucanat with honey. I powdered it and put in there. And I'm going to let you spread that, or Caleb will spread that for you on the gingerbread loaf. These are our new butter bells. We'll have them in sometime this week, I think. We have one style that's from another company, but these are actually the official butter bells. They're a little, this is what it is. It's a crock to keep your butter at room temperature, soft, without it spoiling. And what you do is you put, you fill it about a fourth to a half full of just room temperature water, and then you just put your butter in the little bell part, and then you just invert it and put it in there, and the water stays cool and keeps the butter cool so it doesn't go rancid, but yet it's still spreadable. Yes. Aren't they beautiful? And we have all different styles and colors coming. We have one variety out there that already, but this is the original butter bells. Okay, my Alfredo, the pressure is up, so I'm going to turn that temperature down, and I am going to pressure it. I'll pressure it for 3 minutes, and then I'll quick release it. So, but that's my Alfredo. And then all I've got to do for my Alfredo is stir it into the stir the cheese in. Okay, my rice pudding is done, so I'm going to quick release it. Caleb, do you want the ginger loaf and serve it the same time, or do you want to serve it later? We'll just pass it. Okay. All right, well, here's the ginger loaf. You could go on and be cutting it if you want after you finish the... But these are also, I just think the butter bells are so nice to serve. Isn't that pretty to serve in? And like I said, it keeps the butter spreadable. The little bit of water that's just on the surface, it's just on the surface because of the oil, you know, of the butter. Pardon me? Even in the summer, you change the water every day in the summertime. But in the winter, it's so cold in here that, like, I did this on Saturday, and it was fine today. So I will change it tonight, you know, before I go. So here's the orange butter, Caleb. All right. So to quick release my rice pudding, I'm just going to come over here to the sink, turn my water on, just run a little bit of water on the edge there. I hope all of you that even though you mill, I hope y'all have learned something tonight. So I know some of it was kind of, whoa, that doesn't look good. I need to get that down. I think I overfilled that pan slightly. I thought I had cut back on the liquid enough it was going to be okay. What the pressure cookers did for my family is, as my kids had gotten older and our business had gotten busier and we moved it out of our home, there's some great advantages to having a business in your home. There's some wonderful advantages to having it out of the home. But the disadvantage is that if I'm going to work, I have to be here. Whereas at home, I can work at home. I can still stop and do school with the kids and laundry and things. But if I'm here, I have to be away from them. So I had found that we were falling into the American rut of, we didn't pull through drive-thrus because I know better than that. It's not too much good on those menus. But I was finding that we were eating out, or we'd stop and pick something up. We made wise choices for eating out, which that can be expensive. But, and I didn't like living that way. You know, I was like, I don't like living like this. And then the pressure cookers came into my home, and that's what they did. They brought us back home. I discovered that even if it was 7 o'clock at night, even if I had to go to the grocery store and go in the grocery store and pick some things up, I could walk in my door and like last night I had meatloaf, mashed potatoes. Well, actually we did brown rice last night. Meatloaf, brown rice, butter beans, and stir fry on the table in 30 minutes. I can have barbecue chicken, mashed potatoes, and fresh green beans on the table in 30 minutes. So it's just absolutely amazing. So I just love pressure cookers. And I'm not trying, this is not a pressure cooker night, even though here it is. But whole grains, I mean, look at this. Whole grains normally take an hour to cook conventionally. Yes.
You cooked your meatloaf in that?
I did. I did. I cooked just about everything but oatmeal, grits, and fish. Now, I have started using my smoker for a lot of my meat. And I thought about smoking my meatloaf last night, but I just didn't want to take any chance of it not being right. Meatloaf is absolutely fantastic.
And obviously you did your meatloaf and your brown rice in 2 minutes.
Yes, but I could have done them in one. I actually can. And the pressure cooking class in March, I'll show you how to do meatloaf, mashed potatoes, or brown rice, green beans, all in one pressure cooker. Stack it up. It's fabulous. Chuck wagon stew. Put the potatoes in the bottom, in the top, the stew meat and all the liquid in the bottom. Yeah, it's phenomenal. Meatloaf, 2-pound meatloaf I cooked for 20 minutes. 2.5-pound meatloaf. All right, so here's my rice pudding. Don't be concerned if it's a little liquid. Can y'all see it? Am I out of the? All right, can you see it now? Okay. The Alfredo is actually done. I'll deal with it in just a minute. Okay. Okay, so here's my rice pudding. It's a little soupy looking, but don't worry. I'm going to whip in some eggs here. I'm going to put them on just level 1. And now all you're going to do, yeah. All of a sudden I was like, wait a minute, that didn't have any sweetener in it. It goes in now. I'm going to add a little egg here. My son that we adopted from Latvia, my first one, when Lars made this in the class, he absolutely loved this. They eat a lot of these types of dishes, the bread pudding and the rice pudding and things like that. So I'm just going to whip my eggs up a little bit here. I'm going to add a little sucanat with honey. And that's really not that much for 2 cups of brown rice here. It was 5 tablespoons per recipe. Okay. Now I'm going to add just a little bit of this warm mixture to my rice to temper the eggs. I'm adding a little bit of the warm rice mixture to temper the eggs and sugar to warm it up just a little bit so it doesn't scramble the eggs when I put it in. Okay? Yeah, make a little egg drop rice pudding here. Okay, so I'm just going to stir it in slowly here. I think you're going to love this. I had never really had rice pudding that much. Now see how it's thickened up? Adding the egg, it's nice there. And then I'm going to add, I don't have raisins. Raisins would be good here, but I'm even thinking a little orange zest in this, and the cranberries would be really good. But I'm just going to put the dried cranberries here. And this is ready. So in 15, well, I pre-cooked the rice, but even it cooked for 10 minutes. That was all. So, I mean, you just, huh? It's ready, yeah. Just, yeah, mm-hmm. And so now to eat it, what I like to do is just put it in a bowl. And then just put a little cinnamon on top. Okay, let me taste it, make sure it's all right. see if it's good. If it's not, I won't serve it to you. Like I said, I had never really had rice pudding before, and he did 2 classes. He made it in the first class, and I took 1 bite of it, and I was like, oh my goodness, I didn't get any in the first class except this 1 little bite someone had left over. So he made a double batch in the second class so that I could have it. We had some left over. It was so phenomenal. So I think you'll love it. It's hot. Oh yeah. Very, very tasty. I'm going to add just a little more vanilla because the vanilla bean is a little more potent than this. Not a lot because I don't want to overpower it. And just a little more salt. Oh, you know what? I never put the nutmeg in there, did I? Oh, that wasn't in that. I never put the nutmeg in the Alfredo. Oh, well. Yeah. I put a teaspoon in earlier. Okay. So there's my rice pudding. Let's see. Oh, it's good. You'll like it. And see now, look at there. That's a whole grain that you could either have for dessert, or that is a wonderful breakfast. You could have that for breakfast. It is so nice. I think you're going to like it. All right. Our rice and beans are almost done. They've got 1 more minute, and they're coming down. I'm going to quick release my pasta Alfredo here. And I'm just speeding it along. My sink at home has the divider, so I'm able to rest this on the divider while I run the water over it. But here it gets great exercise. Okay, that's our black-eyed peas and rice. Okay. Here's our pasta Alfredo. Wait till you see this. That's turning off. Is that in the mirror? Oh, I forgot I have to hit that. Okay, you ready for this? Look how creamy that is. Look at that. Isn't that nice? So nice. Who needs hamburger helper? Come on now, really. Who needs boxes of macaroni and cheese? Wait till you taste this. You're just not going to believe it. It calls for Parmesan. I actually use part Parmesan, and I use some of our raw milk cheese. This one is the sun-dried tomato basil, and I've used the garden vegetable. Is really, really nice. That's what I used, Lars used in the class. He really liked it. It was just really tasty. So I'm just going to gently stir this in. And of course, you could add some Italian seasoning here. At home, I'll smoke chicken, like go ahead and smoke a whole smoker full, and then I'll slice my smoked chicken and throw in some steamed broccoli. In fact, I think I did that for, maybe we'll do this again if y'all gonna like this. It's good, isn't it? How many times have you done it? 3 or 4? It's really saucy. I think it could have even used more noodles or less liquid. Oh yeah, I'm glad you said that. I used the brown rice, organic brown rice, the little spirals, the little rotini that we sell. And that's something else I want you to understand. when you're looking to get rid of your white flour junk, don't forget pasta. Pasta is, the store-bought stuff and stuff you have out in the store, out in a restaurant, that's white flour. So you may be thinking, oh, I grind my wheat, make all my bread. But if you're still doing the white flour junky pasta, you're still getting a lot of white flour. And if you're a big pasta eater, you're really getting a lot of white flour. So this is the brown rice pasta. We sell, I love it. We've sold the spelt for years and years, and I like the spelt pasta. The kids sometimes, because it's brown, they kind of get turned off by it. So this is the brown rice pasta, and look how light colored it is. So it's just really nice. And it's $3.45 for a 1-pound bag. So it's not like you're paying, 10 prices for the organic brown rice pasta. So, and these are gluten-free, don't forget, if you do have that issue going on.
On this bread, do you have a recipe for this?
The gingerbread, it should be in your handout, is it not? Well, we'll have to get it there. All right. It's not in your handout? Okay, I missed something. They missed it.
So is the whole wheat pasta just like the whole wheat bread? Is just no good?
I don't know. I'd really have to look at it. But remember, her question was, is the whole wheat pasta like the whole wheat bread? Not really great. I would have to really know my source. But just remember, whole wheat is not a legal term. So there's no telling what exactly it is. Whole grain is a legal term. So if it says it's made with whole grain flour, but remember it's that legal combination, so who knows what that is. But I use the whole grain spelt or the whole grain brown rice. And I mean, I love either one of them. So let me find the gingerbread recipe. Hey, Caleb. Could you take this in the office and print up a bunch of copies? I'll get it. It's real easy. And I just made it in the bread machine. You can make it in a mixer too, though. All right, where'd my... Oh. Let me see if it needs any salt or pepper. And, of course, you could kick it up with some Italian seasoning, some fresh herbs, tarragon or not tarragon, any herb you want, basil, thyme. I didn't. It's pretty good. I put a few herbs on. This is a little thyme and basil that I had left over from Saturday. Or not Saturday, but my pizza class. So I'll just put just a little bit of that. Ah! Okay. It probably could have even cooked a minute less than I did. Alrighty. So we're going to let you have this. I'm going to bring down the beans and rice. I'm actually going to let them, I'll sit them over there and I'm going to let them plate all three of them and you can have those as you leave instead of passing them out. Yes?
Which son was
The basil? Oh, her question is which son? You've been around for a long time. Which son used to raise the basil in the backyard? My son Joshua. Joshua and his wife Amanda work the retail store most every day. If you come in, you'll probably see them. He's in shipping a lot. But this is my oldest son Caleb. Ashley worked day shift, so she left, my oldest daughter. So Abigail was here. Did Abigail leave? She's here. That's Abigail. That's number 5 child. By the baggies of basil. Yes, yes. There's Abigail. She's expecting my 6th grandchild. So we're cool with that. Yep. She's quite proud that she's now showing. Well, she's been our little stick figure for lots of years. We all kind of just want to, get rid of her sometimes. Yeah. So, anyway. but I'm going to let this come down. All right, so your homework is go down the bread aisle and read a bread label for me and eat breakfast. Ezekiel mix, use the flour, complete protein there, but I mean, you don't have to. Grains and dairy, beans and rice, see, those are all complete proteins. Okay, is that rain? Yeah, I told you it was kind of a curl up with a book and a movie, and I'm just so flattered that y'all came to see me tonight. Let me just tell you this. One of the, like I told you earlier, I get excited about the bread because it's tasty food. You don't have to coerce children to eat. But another thing is, how many of y'all have trouble getting your kids to eat breakfast? They say they are not hungry. Watch their nighttime snacks. Don't let them eat too late at night. The same with you. If you have a bowl of ice cream at 11 o'clock at night, your blood, do you know what makes you hungry when you wake up in the morning? It's that you know why they call it breakfast? Because you've fasted all night. So your blood sugar should be low. Well, if you eat a bowl of ice cream or a donut or a candy bar or something late at night, your blood sugar is going to still be up. It's not going to have had time to drop. So watch that, letting them eat late at night, or even you eating a snack or something at night. Just get creative. That's why now as my kids have gotten older, I told you to take the muffin, take the smoothie to the car. Now my 14-year-old has braces. I don't want to get bread in my teeth, So I've just started just the smoothie, just fine. Then here, just have the yogurt. So something like that we've kind of had to get a little more creative with, so it doesn't always work. But try to eat something, an apple. Give them an apple, even if it's not bread. Give them some kind of real food. And I know I'm real bad. I get up very early in the morning, and now the older my kids have gotten, they sleep in. Used to, they got up at 6:30 or 7, and I got up at 5, so I could have some peace and quiet before they all got up. And now my oldest daughter calls, and we're eating breakfast at 11 o'clock, and she just thinks that's hilarious. Well, I still get up at 5 or 6. So I have my quiet time, and I get 2 or 3 loads of laundry done. I get all kinds of stuff done before they come rolling in, and I fix their breakfast, and then we sit down at 10:30, 11, 11:30 for breakfast. And that way you only have to do 2 meals, breakfast and dinner. But I've been up a long time, so a lot of times, and what I've started doing lately is I'll eat an apple and drink some water early in the morning. Very cleansing, very good for your bowels. So these are just some, and then I'll sit down and have breakfast with them. So you really do want to eat breakfast. Notice, if you can't do bread, maybe you cannot afford a meal. Maybe you can't. Then look at what you can do. And even if you don't have a pressure cooker, you can cook these conventionally. They'll just take an hour, to cook. And this, I don't know how I'd do that conventionally, if I would do that conventionally. But, beans and rice are a complete protein, and these are things that you should be doing. So I just want to encourage you there. We're going to plate these up. And I'm 5 minutes early. Imagine that. I'll think of 20 things I didn't tell you. But any questions? Okay, so the first place to start is you need to eat whole grains, real whole grains. It's absolutely amazing, the health benefits there. I'm going to go ahead and quick release this so that they can't say that I ran late tonight. Also, one of the biggest things I want to encourage you with is, if you have obese children, you don't want to put a child on a diet. You just really don't. You want to change the way you're eating and start eating real food. And when we get to the get rid of the junk, but I'll just go ahead and tell you one of the tips I learned. Kids and you are going to eat the easiest thing there is to eat. If there is chips in the cabinet, they're going to eat the chips in the cabinet. If there are no chips in the cabinet, but there's a big bowl of fruit on the table, they'll come by and they'll eat the apple. They'll eat the bananas, they'll eat the grapes, and the same with you. If you'll just change the way the child is eating and get rid of the processed food and start giving them apples and real bread and real broccoli and the apple instead of the apple-flavored fruit bar, okay, that is really simple. If you'll start giving them that, you don't have to worry about counting calories, you don't have to be fussing with them. They may not lose tons and tons of weight, but if you start changing the way they eat, they're going to grow into that weight. They may not continue to gain weight. Does that make sense? And the number one reason kids don't eat at mealtime is because you've let them eat a snack or something in between. Children typically do not overeat. Have you noticed that about your kids? You go to the all-you-can-eat buffet after church, and they eat normally, and you sit there and eat and eat and eat, and you're not hungry for the rest of the day, and they're hungry by the time you get home. It's because they did not overeat. So just remember, if you let them eat some kind of junky snack, you're crowding out a more healthy food, okay? And so don't be surprised that when they sit down to dinner, they go, they're not hungry. So if they are hungry between meals, then start being wise. Let them have an apple, or let them have an orange, or let them have a bowl of grapes or something like that. But if they eat this, that's supposed to be shared by 9 people, and they eat the whole thing, they've just eaten 1,000 calories. Can you believe that? 1,000 calories in this bag? 1,400 to be exactly. You know, that's almost what they're supposed to have the whole day in one bag. You know, and they can easily sit down and eat this, and then they're not going to want anything until you're done with dinner, and then they're going to want something, and then so the cycle just continues. So try to make them hold off. Also watch the sugary drinks, even all natural, 100% fruit juice that's very high in sugar. That will tend to spoil their appetite too. Okay, you had a question? Yes. Okay. Her question is, what if you have a 17-year-old that is not going to do this? They're going to get in their car and they're going to go down the road and buy whatever they want. I don't know what to tell you. Yes. Is it beneficial to make the muffins if that's all that gets in him? Yes, yes, yes. Every little bit. And eventually, he'll come around. He'll come around. I mean, my kids, they like the junk now. When they were little, they didn't, because they didn't have it ever. But the more you eat the junk, you start going, whew, I do really like that over there, So they'll come back. They all come back. All of my married children mill their grain and make their bread, and they all went through stages of, they never said they didn't like it, but I have an 18-year-old, and I'm just, she buys things that I wish she wouldn't. I started telling them, if you are going to buy that, you buy it with your own money, not my money. And if you're going to eat that bag of candy, you're paying for your next dental appointment. See, my kids have not had cavities. That's amazing. And, one of my older ones has, and she has this little junky splurge that she likes. And, I'm taping this. But anyway, she'll never watch it, though. That's okay. You want to come get this so you can be plating this while I answer questions. This is the Alfredo. And here's the black-eyed peas and rice. Look at this. Mm. Oh, sorry. There we go. You're just gonna not believe how easy this recipe is. I mean, did you see it? Yes. Yes, less than 5 minutes maybe. Just fabulous. All right, and here's the black-eyed peas and rice. Just be careful stirring that. The pasta's really done. And then I guess I'll share the rice pudding with you. Oh my goodness. Oh, see it now? See how it thickened up? Let me show you. See? Isn't that nice? Okay, where's my bowl? Did I eat it all? I did. I got to get me a little bit more so I make sure I get some. Oh, I love it. Okay. And here's the rice pudding, guys. Rice pudding. And is that it? I served you everything?
Do we just go over there and get it?
They're going to plate it and y'all can get it, yes, as you leave.
I gotta go home.
Yes. There was another thing I was going to tell you, but I forgot. Yes. Yes. Her question is, how long once it's baked is it good? From everything I've read, once it's baked, the nutritional loss is minimal. It's like raw fruit. It continues to deteriorate but then if you cook an apple pie, it stops all that process, okay? It's the same thing with the bread. In fact, even someone explained to me, a biochemist explained to me, once the yeast, for a yeast bread, once the yeast starts feeding and producing carbon dioxide, it displaces the oxygen and oxidation stops. So with a yeast bread, even in the dough. But anyway, it's minimal. So you're good. It's that flour that you need to use as soon as you've milled it. Okay, that's like the raw food. All right. Freezing the flour, that's something I really need to do. Her question is, does freezing the flour help? Here's the thing, I don't know, to be honest with you. I need to send the flour and get it nutritionally analyzed, but it's quite costly to do the test that I would need to get it done, like freshly milled and then the next day and the next, I mean, that's like very, very expensive. Here's what I don't know, or here's what I do know. I do know that if you cut an apple, you cut a banana, you put it in the refrigerator, they turn dark. That's oxidation. I do know that nuts and things like that are oily, if you put them in the refrigerator or the freezer, that slows the, them from going rancid, which going rancid is an oxidation process. So I don't know. Do you see what I'm saying? It may slow the oils and fats from going rancid, but they say, have you ever read material that says even cabbage, a head of cabbage stored in the refrigerator loses so much vitamin C every day that's stored? That's oxidation. So I have a feeling that yes, it perhaps slows the oils from going rancid, but I doubt it's stopping the oxidation of those nutrients. Yes, ma'am.
So I use, if I have any left, because I don't want to throw it away.
Right, the vacuum seal.
Put it in and take it down so there's no area.
Yes.
And then I use that to dust my.
Right. Yes, and that's what I do too if I have any flour left over. But I've learned a cup of flour makes a cup and a half, a cup of grain makes a cup and a half of flour. So I pretty much measure my grain and try to only mill what I'm going to use. But I'm like her, I don't throw anything away, and I'll keep it, I'll put it in the refrigerator or the freezer, and that's what I use to dust my counter with. If I end up with a big bag, I might make a batch of pancakes with it. I might, it usually gets lost in my freezer and eventually it gets tossed. But I don't usually have that much flour left over. Christine? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Oh, yes. Well, and that's what I tell people. If you can't afford a mill and you're having to get someone mill it for you, and good night, ladies. I'll see y'all next week. Be sure to get your food over here. So, it's better than anything you're going to buy in the store. Anything. And you're not going to lose the fiber, and that's a huge, huge player. And you're not going to lose the protein and the carbohydrates that are there. Will you lose some nutritional value? Perhaps, yes. From what I've read, but it's still better than anything you're going to buy in the store. So I just can't encourage you enough to start with the bread. That concludes our presentation for tonight. I will see you next Thursday night. Pray for me as I